Good evening and welcome to the June 16th, 2022 meeting of Cohasset Conservation Committee. I'm Chris McFarland, Chairman of the committee. I'll be running tonight's meeting as we implement Massachusetts and Cohasset Wetland Protection Act and Cohasset Stormwater Management Regulations. Be operating tonight's meeting using the Zoom platform, and ask the public who wish to speak to enter your questions, comments, or concerns in the chat box. Please include your name and address. Only those who include their name and address will be recognized. Present on behalf of the Conservation Commission tonight are our Conservation Administrator, Angela Giso, and Town Conservation Agent, Charlotte Patel. I'll now take a roll call of commissioners and associate commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. William Ashton.
William Ashton, present.
Tom Bell.
Tom Bell, present.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Eric Eisenhower.
Eric Eisenhower, present.
Trish Grady. Not present. Jay Pampari.
Present.
Chris McFarland, present. And Associate Commissioner Chris McIntyre is not present this evening, but we do have a quorum of 6 commissioners. We'll be taking all votes via roll call, with each commissioner answering yay, nay, or abstain. Our first hearing this evening is an NOI 21-26, continued from well, it goes back a ways, but most recently continued from June the 2nd, and it's at 12 Hobart Lane. So
It goes back to March 10th.
thank you.
This year.
Hi, Gary. Hi, Paul. Joe will be jumping on in a minute or so.
All right, if you want, I can wait for him, Charlotte, or if you want me, I can get started on this.
We can get started if that's okay with everyone.
All right. After our past meeting, this is obviously a continuation from the past meeting, and what we have done is, I believe you've been distributed all of the revised plans. We have located every one of the flags that were set by John Zimmer on the parcel, and we reset the setbacks associated with it and adjusted the activity area associated with the driveway pretty much to conform to those limits. So what we have done is we've reduced the overall area that's going to be disturbed in conjunction with this to nothing more than just a driveway, a modification of the driveway. Pretty much all we're doing is we're adding about 755 square feet of pavement in association with the driveway expansion. By doing that, what we have done is we've reduced the overall disturbance area to 2,520 square feet. There we go. Yeah, about 2,520 square feet. And of that, approximately, I think it's 2,100 within the limits of the, 2,150 within the limits of the 100-foot buffer, and 160 inside the 150. In fact, you can see it right there, right on the corner of the garage. There we go. Yeah, right there. Now, what I've also done in an effort to try and help the abutters is I've modified the wall arrangement, and by increasing the height just a little bit, I mean, up to about somewhere between 2.5 and 3 feet. In fact, 3 feet separation between the two. I was able to get rid of one of the walls. So that means that we can actually maintain those small, those trees that are located right on the wall itself. We don't have to take those down. So that line of Norway maples that are there will be maintained. There is some ledge removal that will be required for the expansion. And in conjunction with the 755 square feet, we are going to make some stormwater improvements. We will actually be placing a berm along the back side of the catch of the driveway and putting a full-size catch basin in that back left corner. In conjunction with that, we will go to a subsurface system that will act primarily as a sand filter. We'll go through an isolator row in conjunction with that. So that will provide the pre-treatment required, and we'll achieve somewhere in the range of about 85%. It will be subject to a stormwater permit, but my understanding is that this will be strictly an administrative review based on the amount of disturbance being less than 5,000, and the fact that and based on a small amount of increase in the overall impervious. I did do the calculations. I don't have them here in front of me right now, but it does it does result in a pretty significant reduction in the overall peak flow rate. And in fact, the outfall is directed towards the wetlands that have been flagged by John Zimmer, so they won't impact the abutter. So there's quite a bit of savings in terms of a reduction in terms of the peak flow rates and the runoff rates heading back towards the abutters in association with this. But overall, it's been reduced substantially in scope. I would hope that the commission would agree with us that the reduction in the overall scope of this project is pretty substantial, and that this is a project that can be approved under the act and under the bylaw. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for this evening?
I had a question, please, about the ledge. If I read it correctly, it looks like the ledge elevation is 32 feet. Is that correct? And it's going to be lowered to below 28 feet?
Below 28, that's
Elevated.
correct. So yeah, if it can be hammered, it'll be hammered. If it can't, then we'll have to blast the top off of it.
And how much ledge would that be taking it out?
It won't be much. It'll be 1 day's worth of blasting. I mean, I can't imagine it's more than maybe 80 to 80 yards, 90 yards, somewhere in that range.
80 yards of,
Of rock, yeah.
you mean like cubic yards or?
Yeah,
what?
cubic yards, yeah, cubic
Okay.
yards. The thing about ledge blasting is you're actually better off going a little deeper with the dynamite than you are shallow, because with the shallow ones, you can only use very, very, very small amounts of dynamite. You know, you're down to a quarter of a stick in the holes, and the holes have to be spaced tighter. But if you can go deeper, you can actually do fewer holes, and so they'll blast a little more than they need to, but they'll only take out what they have to.
And that area is being leveled because what is that area right there? Is that a turnaround?
That's just a turnaround, yeah. It's just to provide better access to the back, to the garage. And in reality, also, it will provide them some overnight parking also if they need it.
Thank you.
Charlotte, do you have a photograph of what the parking area looks like right now, please?
Yes, I can pull that up.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked. The question I have is how disturbed the area that we're working in is right now. All right. It's certainly not virgin forest. I was hoping to get a look at the photograph
Oh,
to
okay.
see something that indicates that this area has had a prior construction, a prior workover experience. So we're not talking about virgin forest here. And a photograph would help me.
Sorry, I'm going through all my previous site visit photos, and the ones from when I took in September were in a different file format and they can't be opened on my computer. But here's you actually in this picture when we went on our site visit in October. So this is the
I think that's
existing.
before I fell off. That's before I fell off.
Charlotte, if you could just leave that photo up there, right there, and just have the applicant explain
Sure.
the tri-tiered rock wall that's going to be there, and talk about the existing area of pavement and how that moves, if it moves, with respect to the top of that rock wall, please.
I have to promote the owner. I think Joe's on the call I'll just promote him for 1 sec, but I can't do that sharing screen. So sorry, give me 1 second. All right, now I can reshare. There he is. Hi, Joe.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little late.
Justin, if you look
Right,
at,
right.
if you look at the photograph, this is Gary
Yes.
James. If you look at the photograph, see how it curves back?
Yep.
Right about, probably this side of where he's standing, this side right at the shadow. Instead of curving back, it actually will go perpendicular to the driveway. So what happens is that it's more of an angle. It's probably somewhere in the range of about 30 degrees off of that wall and will head more straight out. So what happens is that wall right now is probably somewhere in the range of about 3.5 to 4 feet. So it's pretty tall, but what we'll end up doing, instead of doing something, something like that. There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
And it'll extend further out. It'll extend
Right.
further out. Right now, I believe it's only about, well, it's that back door, it doesn't provide
Yep.
hardly anything.
Okay. Thank
you. It actually curves right away from that last garage door. So you actually
Right.
have to turn into that rather than come
Yep.
straight into it. So now you'll be able to come straight into it. And we can tear it down. We can tear the walls down so that they're not, instead of having one big wall, we can do it so that it's 3 walls.
Right. I did see that on the plan. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and that will give him an opportunity too. I mean, if he wants to, he can create landscape buffers association with that. So that 3 feet will give them enough room that if they want to try and establish some vegetation in there, even to hide the walls or to pretty it up, to landscape it and make it prettier, they certainly have that opportunity to do
Okay.
so.
Okay. Thank you.
Gary, so that 3 foot step down will be replaced by 3 gradients going up. Is that right?
Yeah, 3 more going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
each one-
the further down, the further we get away from that wall, that's Eric, right?
Yeah.
The further we get away, obviously the grade is falling away. So we're kind of chasing the grade. So we can't do it with 1 wall. We'll just do it with 3.
Okay. And each one will be about 2 feet high?
Yeah, well, no, they're going to be probably somewhere in the range of about between 2.5 to 3, depending. There'll be some slope in between.
There's a diagram, Charlotte, if you want to share your screen. There's a diagram on the plan of the tiered wall.
There you go.
Yeah, right there.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we'll do also is we'll use a clean sand fill underneath it to be able to fill that.
Are you
We'll
going to
use
use
a nice clean sand. No, that's my dog.
Would you be using a filter fabric at all on the backside of that wall?
I thought I had it on. Oh, I thought I showed it on there, Eric. Justin.
Seems like that would be a good preventive measure.
Yes, I will. I will add it to the drawing. The
Okay,
intent was to put a filter fabric on the backside so that we wouldn't
Yeah,
see
I think-
fines migrating through it.
that'll help you out with the silt.
Yeah. I thought I had put it on there. I didn't. I apologize. But you can see also, we will put a small Cape Cod berm on the outside of the driveway to make sure that the catch basin collects it all. And it'll be a regular full-size catch basin.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I obviously this is a significant improvement from the original plan. I know we've been going on this for months and months now. There was significant work proposed down below, and in my view, I think the applicant has done what they've had to do to get this driveway in up top.
Any questions
you.
from the public? Any other comments from commissioners?
I'll just add that John Zimmer looked at the revised plan and didn't have any additional questions or comments about the project. He did recommend 2 conditions if anyone's interested in seeing those for a motion. But
Yeah, if you could recite those, Charlotte.
sure, yeah. So he recommended putting in a special condition for the control of invasives such as the Phragmites that will likely jump from the stone wall once the mowing stops. And then he also recommended putting in conservation markers at the wetland boundary, so that everyone's aware where the wetland is. Especially if the property changes ownership in the near future too, that would be helpful for any future owners, but not
What
sure.
was the first condition again? A little slower.
Sure. So he recommended putting in a special condition for the control of invasive species such as the Phragmites, that might jump over the stone wall. And then the second one was having conservation markers put in at the wetland boundary, just so everyone's aware where they are.
And how do you go about controlling the invasive species from jumping that wall?
He didn't really go into much detail, but that was his recommendation. And I said, okay, I'll pass it along.
All right, got it.
Charlotte, let me just say, early on in this endeavor, you had some photographs of that area where the Phragmites could go. There's already Phragmites there. You can see it lying on the ground. It was well cut, but there is Phragmites at the end of the property. So it's not really a question of preventing it from going. It's already there, but it was cut down now and it probably was not visible. How do you get rid of it? You relentlessly go at it and cut it. If you every 2 or 3 weeks take your scythes to it, over a period of 2 or 3 years, you will eliminate it in that area. Very simple, but you have to keep on top of it. No pesticides, no nothing, just what we call a bit of hard work. Solid gardening maintenance going back there, and you can control it because it's not that much.
All right.
Yeah, the problem is, Justin, is that the Phragmites are already there on the abutting parcel. So,
Yeah.
As long as if they're not going to maintain if they're not going to do the management associated with the invasives, then the answer is unfortunately it's going to fall on my client. So every time they want to move forward, he's just going to have to keep cutting it.
Yep.
It's no different than Japanese knotweed. The reason you don't have Japanese knotweed in your lawn is that you mow it. And by mowing it, you continually hitting it back, and eventually it dies, all right? And it's the same thing with Phragmites, and same thing with any invasive. You keep on top of it, you deal with it ruthlessly over a period of 3 or 4 years, and you will control it. But if you sit back and you go sailing or go to the golf course on the weekends during the summer and expect it's going to control itself, you ain't going to have any satisfaction. So,
I think, Eric, if you look at the way he's been maintaining it, and I'll let Joe talk about this, but I think he's been down there. I think he's been weed whacking it once a month, maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks now is all he's been doing, which is all he has been doing. I mean, they don't have a machine down there mowing it. They've been doing it with a weed whacker.
Certainly, when I was there several months ago, when the photographs were taken, it had been weed whacked, and that's what you have to stay on top of it and eventually get rid of it.
Yeah.
No, that's not rocket science.
No,
Yeah.
I agree.
I'll entertain a motion.
Jay Pampari will make a motion to issue an order of conditions for the project at 12 Hobart Lane with the following one condition. The condition that that there would be installation of conservation markers at the boundary of the edge of the wetland. And I'm going to leave the control of the invasive species up to the owner and not include that condition.
Chris, I have one more comment I'd like to make before we vote. I was initially greatly opposed to this project because it looked to me like we were once again chewing up the 50-foot barrier and doing something which we haven't allowed anywhere else. For example, in Hobart Lane, we just had a project where we forced a person to redesign a pool because he was building in the 50-foot because it was virgin area. I'm very convinced now that this is not a virgin area that we're talking about with 50-foot. It's already been built on. There's been construction there. So our problem about working in the 50-foot area, constructing in the 50-foot area, and destroying a virgin area doesn't really apply here. I think it's important because this is one of the few times that we've allowed construction and disturbance of the 50-foot area. And, you know, it's because it's not a virgin area and it has been work done in the past, at least from my point of view.
I would agree with you, Eric. And I also, so I made a motion with one condition. I want to add another condition onto there as well that I forgot to put on there. The conditions that a revised plan be put together within 7 days that outlines the geofabric on the backside of the 3-tiered wall.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Having heard a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions for NOI 21-26 for 12 Hobart Lane. Take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Jay Pampari,
Dave Campari, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 6-0-0.
Jay Pimpar will also make a motion to issue a variance for the work at 12 Hobart Lane. And as Mr. Eisenhower has mentioned, there is really at this point a minimal work that's being done inside the 50, although there is work inside the 50. So we will need a variance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second to issue a variance for work within the 50-foot buffer. Take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Jay Pampari,
Dave Campari, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 6-0-0. Thank you very much. You'll have to get that plan to Charlotte, and you'll also have to get the administrative stormwater permit to Charlotte as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you
It's good
very
seeing
much.
you all this evening.
Good
Thank
luck.
Have a good night.
Have a good project.
Appreciate it.
Our next hearing this evening is a new hearing. I'll read it into the record. This is notice of public hearings for 15 Mill Lane in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw, the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 16, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for notice of intent 22-22 for Shannon King to repair a failing septic system within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and within a riverfront area at 15 Mill Lane.
Hi, Paul, can you hear us?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hello. So yeah, for the record, my name is Paul Gunn. I'm a design engineer at Morse Engineering, here to represent the applicant for the notice of intent for the septic repair at 15 Mill Lane. So this site is currently occupied by an existing single-family dwelling with associated.
I'm sorry, can I just interject here? Can
Yeah.
someone show the, Paul, if you could share your screen and show the plan, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
There we go. Is that visible?
Yes, thank
It
you.
is.
Okay. So as I was saying, the site currently sits an existing single-family dwelling with an associated paved driveway, shed, deck, landscaping, and lawn areas. The dwelling is currently served by a septic that is considered to be in failure. The resource areas on site include the 100-foot buffers to 2 separate bordering vegetated wetlands as delineated by John Zimmer, one to the south and then one to the north across the street. In addition, about half the site lies within the 200-foot riverfront area associated with Bound Brook. We are proposing to replace the existing septic with a new microfast denitrogen treatment tank and a geoflow drip dispersal field. This is a system that includes a secondary treatment tank with higher nitrogen removal and effluent treatment. So it provides a higher rate of treatment as opposed to more conventional septic systems. We're proposing the system on as much previously disturbed area as possible, as well as proposing the leaching field to be outside of the 50-foot buffer to either of the adjacent resource areas. Erosion and sedimentation control have been proposed with an erosion control barrier to the southeast, just to prevent any sediment migration into the nearby BVW. I believe that's all I have. I'll turn it over now to the commission for question and comment. Thank you very much.
So the 100-foot buffer that you're showing on here is to the BVW, correct?
Yeah, so it's not quite visible on the plan, but there is another BVW that was flagged across the
Okay.
street to the north.
Okay.
And those 100-foot buffers actually intersect right here. So this line, this buffer line is from this BVW. Well, this portion is where it intersects with this BVW.
And then the riverfront is there.
Yes, this thin
Okay.
red line here is the 200 front riverfront area to the Bound Brook.
Bound Brook being the in which direction?
To the north across the street.
Okay.
Is there a reason why the proposed tanks in the 1,500 gallon pump chamber are in the location that they are, or couldn't be further outside of the 50, between the 50 and the 100, as opposed to being in the 0 to 50?
Yes, so the primary reason is because we try to negate bends in the building sewer, the pipe going from the initial tank to the building as much as possible, just because that pipe has solids in it and has a much higher potential to clog. You can provide cleanouts, but it can only do so much, and we already have 190-degree bend here. The other reason, and the more important reason, is mostly just equipment and material staging. We can't quite do that, or we don't want to do that in the 50-foot buffer if we can prevent it. And we're going to need some, access on this site is very tight, as I'm sure you can tell, and we're going to need room for, mini excavators and material staging. And that area directly to the north of the tanks is probably the easiest area. And if the tanks were there, obviously you can't really store any material up over it or drive any construction equipment over the tanks.
So which way are the excavators and the backhoes going to come into the site?
Currently, we are hoping that they are going to be able to use the existing concrete driveway as a construction entrance. You can see in the plan that we have a note that the applicant's going to need to obtain permission from the abutter. There's a bit of a property line change here. The owner and the buyer for the house weren't quite aware of where the lot line was, and obviously the person who installed that concrete driveway. So we're going to need to obtain permission from the abutter to access the site that way. We're currently in the process of doing that. If for whatever reason that doesn't pan out, I discussed this at length with Greg Morrison. We can access the site from the northern portion of the house, but the installation will have to be done with mini excavators and skid steers. So hardly the most efficient method, but it can be done.
Yeah.
So you could then actually move those tanks. It's not infeasible, right?
Yes.
It may be
but
convenient. It may be more convenient, but they could be moved out of the 50.
Yeah, I don't know quite. We'd have to figure out a spot to store any excavated material if that's where the tanks are going. But yeah, it's theoretically possible.
Where is the existing driveway now? Can you just outline that on the map? I think I can see it, but if you could just.
Absolutely. So this is the first edge of it.
Yeah.
It extends over to here, and then that's the second edge of it.
Right.
So as you can see, the majority of it actually lies on the abutting property, hence the need for permission.
And that's an asphalt driveway currently now that's already in the 50.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And this is a replacement of a failing tank?
Yeah, this is a replacement of a failing system.
Where's the failed system? Where's its drain field and where's its tank?
So we believe it's actually an existing cesspool. I have on the plan here, we believe there was a cesspool here. I've actually just recently discovered that that's actually a decommissioned well. I've confirmed with the water department and I've gone in the basement. It's no longer a well that's in service, but there's actually no records of the existing cesspool. I believe, I'm afraid it might be under the deck. I'm not too sure because that's where the pipe exits the house. But it's to the right of the existing dwelling.
So, Mr. Gunn, the system you're going to put in, does it have any means of sterilizing the water post-treatment, like a UV, a weir with a UV light?
It does not. It is it does have a secondary treatment tank, a nitrogen removal,
Right.
for the Board of Health regs within 400 feet of the bound brook, but it is not equipped with that.
So it's my understanding that companies that do make these denitrifying systems, some of them do include a UV sterilization step. And let me explain my concern. This is going to go into, sooner or later, this water does go to Bound Brook, and Bound Brook then discharges to the Gulf River. And I think most of us are aware that we had a serious bacterial count this last August and September that closed our beaches. And not to say that this would necessarily contribute to it, or even if it did contribute enough to make a difference, but I'm just asking more or less out of curiosity about the sterilization that may or may not take place after this is treated, but before it goes into the drain field. It sounds like the answer is no, it won't be treated.
Not with UV light, no. I mean, this is one of the higher rated secondary treatment tanks. The
Right.
more common one might be a hoot tank, but that's not actually rated for nitrogen removal of less than 25 milligrams per liter, which is the microfast tanks are. But no, at this point, we haven't proposed any UV sterilization.
What's the soil like over there where the chambers are going in?
So the proposed field's actually it's actually essentially perforated irrigation tubing. It's a drip dispersal field, so it has a very thin profile. So there's no installation of chambers, but the soils seem the A and B horizons, obviously, because interactions with organics are usually finer. They're a sandy loam, whereas the C horizon is a loamy sand.
And how deep could you scroll back up there? How deep did you go on those?
So we encountered fractured bedrock at about 58 to 56 inches.
Okay. And what's the bottom of the tubing?
The bottom of the tubing, the invert of the tubing is at 49.5. We hit refusal about 4 feet below that.
Okay. So you've got plenty of separation.
Yes. And
Okay.
in terms of leaching fields, this is about as thin as they come.
Yep. Okay, got it.
Do you have to do a groundwater mound analysis for one of these systems? This leach field?
Not for single family residential septic designs. We're not required to do a mounding analysis.
Yeah. Hmm?
Paul, this is Kathy Berrigan. How much ledge will you have to remove if you need to remove ledge for the tanks, as mentioned on the site plan there?
Yeah. So strictly just enough to get them low enough to meet the minimum grade requirements, which is 9 inches of cover over the tank. I don't think they'll have to remove actual bedrock. Like I said, we found fractured bedrock, so difficult to remove, but not necessarily removal that requires blasting. We usually put this on plans in Cohasset because you never really know, and we want to make sure the installer realizes that that's a potential possibility when they're bidding on a design.
So how much would be removed? Like if you had to do cubic yards, is it a fair amount, or is it? I mean, how big are the tanks?
The tanks on average are about 5.5 by 10 feet wide. So 5.5 feet wide, 10.5 feet long. So about 50 square feet. At the most, I would expect maybe 2 feet of removal, which is only approximately about 100 cubic feet per tank. So in terms of cubic yards, that's not much, it's maybe
3.5.
5. It's a 3.5. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very small amounts of ledge.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions by commissioners?
No further questions.
Anyone from the public?
I think this is a significant improvement. Obviously, don't even know if there's a cesspool. Even if there was a cesspool, it's basically like having nothing there.
Mhm.
Although I don't even know where the water goes here. So this is probably the best design that can be done on this site. And having said that, Jay Pimparo make a motion to issue an order of conditions for the project at 15 Mill Lane.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions for NOI 22-22 at 15 Mill Lane. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Jay Pampari,
Jay Pimparo, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 6-0.
Jay Pimparo will make a motion to issue a variance for the work at 15 Mill Lane.
Second.
Having a motion and a second to issue a variance for work within the buffer zone, 50-foot buffer at 15 Mill Lane. Take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Jay Pampari,
Jay Pimparo, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Welcome. Good night.
Next hearing this evening is a new hearing. We'll read into the record 20 Nichols Road, notice of public hearing in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Cohasset Wetland Bylaws and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. The Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 16, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for notice of intent 22-23 at 20 Nichols Road from Glenn and Kathleen Murphy for landscaping improvements, walkways, patios, and a coastal bank. Don't think that reads quite right, but it's probably a patio near the coastal bank. Anyway. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors, representing the homeowners and applicants, Kathleen and Glenn Murphy. Kathleen is here on the meeting this evening with me. As stated, I will share my screen if that's okay. I
Yes,
can
please.
speak to the plan here. There we go. So I did sort of a split screen on this one for this plan view. So I'm going to start with the existing conditions. Again, the property is located at 20 Nichols Road. Trying to zoom this in a little bit so you can see. Access off of Nichols Road, an existing single family home adjacent to the inner Little Harbor. Resources on the site is identified as a salt marsh as well as coastal bank. Were identified with the 50-foot buffer and the 100-foot buffer encompassing basically the entire parcel. There is also a flood zone with an elevation of 10 that runs along the bank side or easterly side of the property. The proposed work, let's see if I can zoom this in so it looks a little nicer. Includes some landscaping and as stated, walkway improvements. Currently, the existing walkway that runs along the front or face of the or easterly side of the property is a stone and gravel concrete combination of a walkway. It's very unlevel and uneven. The owners have a family member that has restricted accessibility, and so they're looking to basically clean up or improve the walkway so that they have an accessible route into the house. There are steps coming into the garage. There's steps on the front entry as well as the rear entry that cannot be avoided just for the grades of the site. So the only way to provide an accessible route would be to redo the walkway that comes out to the existing patio in this location and come into the home from that access point. With that being said, the walkway is proposed as a bluestone walkway with, there is an existing patio here, a rectangular one that we're replacing with a circular patio area, coming back out to redoing the existing patio area here. The limits of the existing patio come out a little bit farther here, so we are reducing that area. And then also we're proposing to remove some existing concrete steps that run down the side slope here to access the existing lawn area on the easterly side along the harbor here. And we'd like to replace it with a more gradual sloped walkway that would be just a lawn path. And with that also, there is about an 18-inch landscape wall that runs along this portion here that would be removed as well. So those two fixed structures will be removed out of the buffer and coastal bank area. I'm going to zoom out just so with the landscaping, walkway improvements, looking to do some improvements on the rear side and the accessibility up into the front so that we have matching walkways surrounding the property. We're looking to put in a cobble apron just at the entrance within the limits of the existing driveway already. And the green areas here is proposed landscaping to improve and enhance what's there. I just hopped over to the landscaping plan, kind of shows a little bit nicer than our engineered plan. So from a landscaping perspective, since we're replacing, would like to replace the walkway, they're looking to improve and enhance the landscaping in this front portion area, which would include the removal of the existing junipers. And I believe those are in this area here, the front portion, and replacing them all with native flowering perennials and native grass mix. And I think the landscape plan was prepared by Skyline, Carol Lamb as the landscape architect. She does have a note here that she drew all of the plants selected for this project from the Cohasset guideline for plant selection, as well as the South Shore native plant species plant list. They're looking to enhance some of the border along Nichols Street here as well, maintaining the existing trees that are in this area. Coming into the back again, just enhancing the landscape area that's already existing here. And then lastly, there is this portion of the coastal bank. They would like to secure the bank a little bit more. So no removal of vegetation in that area, just enhancing it with a slope remediation here with a jute mesh blanket that has a New England erosion control seed mix provided to help enhance the stabilization of that sloped area. And the last point that I would make is that we looked at, since the whole site is within the buffer zone, we were looking at the impacts with respect to the 0 to 50 foot buffer, 50 to 100. So we are reducing the impervious surface within the 0 to 50 by 29 square feet. There's a reduction there. We do have a slight increase because of the new walkways to the rear of the property between the 50 and 100, which is about 60 square feet, resulting in a small increase of 31 square feet of impervious in the overall 100-foot buffer. Also, just For clarification, there was a new tree installed in the upper corner here. What happened back in the a storm event last October is a large tree on the abutting property fell during the storm event. So now there's a gap in the buffer between the two properties. So the Murphys looked to install a 20-foot high, replace that with a very large tree to recreate that buffer that they had prior to that tree coming down. So we showed that on the plan as it was. Full disclosure, I believe the tree was has been installed already. It was delivered early and they needed to plant it. So we put it, it's in the farthest corner possible. And it's obviously not located in the 50-foot buffer. We do have on a note here that we were looking to remove a 10-inch redbud tree that's near the front entryway. That was cut down. It was causing problems with the front steps there and the house itself. So we're looking, obviously that was a removal that we were going to propose, but it has been done already since they had brought the tree in. So those were two items on the plan identified for the commission. We are proposing 2 locations for stockpile areas. Since we have an existing driveway with a small turnaround, we're looking to stockpile the paver areas here, no soil or anything that would, could potentially have spilling over. But we thought that was an appropriate location since it's already a paved driveway, that this would be a good location for any paver stockpiles. We have located another additional stockpile outside of the 50-foot buffer for any other materials needed for the construction. The red line shown here is our full erosion control wrapping around the entire easterly side and up the northerly side of the property to encompass the entire area, work area. I think I've covered everything. Charlotte, I know Charlotte made a site visit and we had a couple of comments. We did add some additional references to our civil site plan to refer to the landscaping plan. So those 2 plans tie together.
Deborah, Eric Eisenhower.
Yes.
I couldn't find your planting diagram in the package of information we had. Would you be able to submit that? Because I can't read it right now. It's
Sure.
really small.
Sure. This
Sure.
plan, you mean, so you're looking for this
Yeah.
plant
What
schedule?
I would like to know is that which plants on there are not part of our Cohasset planting list. You mentioned something called a South Shore list. We don't recognize that. We have our own list, which has been
Sure.
substantially researched. And I just like to make sure that the plants you're using are consistent with our list.
It does reference our list, Eric.
Doesn't I'm sorry, I haven't seen that yet.
Yes, so in the comments right here. So
Yeah.
Kara did
I'm sorry,
use your Cohasset guideline plant selection. I believe Charlotte mentioned in correspondence back to me that there might be 2 species that were off the South Shore list. I would defer to Charlotte if she has a comment on that. If you
Yeah, I
didn't
can
mind.
pull up. I can pull up the emails. I know Kara looked at both our principal native plant species list and then the wetland and coastal plantings guidelines that are also on our website. I believe there were 2 species that I saw on the list that weren't on either list, but they were both native. And I'm happy to look back at my emails if we want to confirm which ones those are. Or Eric, I don't know if the names pop out to you.
I'm trying to figure out, because what's native to you may not be native to me. There's a scientific basis for our choice of native plants, because
Sure.
every time we talk to a landscape designer, they got another list of native plants. We have a list that we swear by, well researched, and we just want to make sure that everyone's using that list. That's all right? So
Yep.
I don't know which on here are or not on our list. But I would ask you and Charlotte, spend some time going through that and make sure that what you're using is on our authorized list, please. Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
Charlotte, do you have some pictures of the actual site? I know you did do that, but
Yes,
You
I
can
can
show
pull
them?
those up. Sure. Thank you, Deb. So I walked around the property from the driveway to the left side of the property, all the way to the right, where the walkway is going to go. So I'll just slowly kind of go through, so this is where the staging area would be,
Yep.
and that little driveway turnaround section. This is coming around the left side of the property, existing lawn and landscaping there. And this is where they're going to, improve the little walkway on the back side. And then, oh, yeah, you guys, I took a better picture of the tree, but you guys can see the tree that was, I believe, installed at this point. I think it was a maple sycamore hybrid. Yeah, so that's the tree right there that was put in the corner of the property.
Maple sycamore hybrid. That's interesting.
Yeah, never heard of that. And then this is the back right corner where they want to do some coastal stabilization. And then just is walking around the right side of the property, existing landscaping on the back, existing patio that they're going to slightly decrease in size and impervious, existing deck that will remain. And then this is the slope that they want to stabilize just a little bit more. They're not removing any trees. They're just, want to add the native seed mix. And then I'm getting to the walkway. So this is, the walkway that, obviously is a little narrow and hard to access. And then those are the concrete steps. They're going to be removed that go down to the coastal bank. This is the existing landscaping on the right-hand side. You guys can see the junipers in the, far side of the photo. Existing patio here.
Okay. So there's only one tree that's being removed, as I understand it.
I believe so, yes. It was the redbud tree and it's already been removed. Here, I'm getting to that photo. There we go. So it was removed because it was very close to the foundation.
Yep.
So I just, talked with the owner that, in the future, we just want to see it first before it comes down.
Okay.
Charlotte, did you take any pictures of the area on the kind of northeast side that they want to stabilize that show any evidence of erosion, or why is it what I've seen so far, it looked stable, but I'm not sure I was looking at the right spot.
Yeah, at least to me, I don't know if if Kathleen can speak a little bit more, Deb can speak a little bit more, but it didn't look too eroded, but I don't know what it looks like after certain storms. So this is part of the area here.
I mean, it looks like a wild area to me. And is there any evidence that it's unstable? I mean, this is the coastal bank here we're talking about.
Yes. So it looks much nicer now that you have vegetation there. But when that vegetation dies back, you can kind of see where there's some subtle, it's very subtle, but I think the goal here is sort of that preventative so that that erosion doesn't grow. So they're just looking to enhance the vegetation that's there now, not alter anything, but just try to enhance it to make sure that the erosion does not expand at all.
So there is erosion there.
It's very, small areas where you can see rilling, not with you can't see it with the vegetation at this viewpoint. If the vegetation had died down, you can kind of see it a little bit better. It looks actually nice now, but I think that, again, the goal is just to enhance what's there, not to disturb it at all, but just try to provide some stabilization for it. To continue so that there isn't any erosion down the line that they would have to, actually have to do some major repairs or anything. So it's more preventative than anything.
Are there any other properties in the neighborhood here that are experiencing erosion problems?
I personally know of any at this point.
I mean, this is the coastal bank, and normally we wouldn't disturb it. We wouldn't do anything to it.
Sure.
Yeah, I would second Tom's comments about that as far as what the actual stability about that, of the bank itself. And then my next question is, let's go back to the actual junipers. Charlotte, if you had a picture of the junipers on the other side of the coastal bank there, I don't know that we have a great one, but that one wasn't too bad. Same kind of comment here is I'm not quite grasping why we would be wanting to remove all that vegetation just to, I guess, make it look a little pretty. It looks very vegetated and it looks like it acts like a very nice buffer going down to the grass.
Well,
It's certainly stabilizing the bank.
Yeah.
yeah, I think they're just looking that it hasn't been maintained for a bit, and so it's slightly overgrown. They were looking to replant it with native vegetation. And we also are looking for the walkway path, which kind of dives through that area. If, I obviously we want to do the right things, but we're looking to improve that area. And removing the steps and putting in more of an accessible route down to the lawn area kind of runs through those junipers. Not obviously through all of them, but would cut somewhat through there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only one person, but personally, I have no problem with redoing the paved area, going around the house there, putting in the blue pavers, and even the removal of what's already existing there now, and making that obviously more accessible. If Charlotte, if you could go back to that picture. So as far as the physical enhancements of the walkway and the patio and all of that around the side of the house, I don't personally have an issue with that at all. I guess my concern is just if you could show the picture we were just on, Charlotte, is just going into the one more back. Just going into the back and going into the bank and disturbing that when you have existing current fine vegetation there now. It looks like the lawn area at the bottom of where it kind of flattens out, if you go back a couple more, Charlotte, really is very well maintained down the bottom. So I just, and if you, down the bottom of where the junipers are, that 20, they're right there. It looks like 20 or 25-foot stretch of land is very nicely manicured and freshly cut. So those are my comments. I'm not sure why we're doing a giant overhaul of the bank. You could probably do some nice planting in there, in and around what's already there, rather than ripping it completely up and putting in some form of vegetation. It looks fine without disturbing the bank.
Deborah, I would just go and add that I think the finest stabilization you have for that bank exists there right now, which is the adult, thorough, gripping juniper prostrate that you have there that runs along the bank. That is solid stuff. That's going to keep everything in place, come what may, with any tidal movement. All right. There's no reason, if you're concerned about stability of the bank, there's no reason to remove that. As Jay said, if you want to clear a pathway downwards, do that. Do the manicure job, make it look nice. But to take it out, you definitely are taking a step backwards in terms of promoting stability of the bank.
Okay, just for clarification, this juniper is in closer to Nichols Road than where we're looking to do the stabilization of the bank. So two separate locations on the site, but I appreciate the comment in regards to the junipers. So if this picture was spun around looking to the north, that would be the location where they're looking to enhance the slope. In this area where the junipers are, they were looking to enhance the landscaping with some additional wetland plantings that are shown on the plant list. May I suggest, would it be possible to trim, or remove the junipers that are needed for the walkway and trim the remaining ones, not remove them, and then enhance around them as a...
Yeah, I think that's what I was kind of getting at.
Okay.
Yes, I personally, I would not have a problem with that.
Okay,
Just, don't, and I get it. We're talking about, this area here is two separate projects. We're talking about
Yeah.
the stabilization of the bank, which seems okay here to me. And then, yeah, I personally would not have a problem with the trimming of the junipers, the removal of the walkway and clearing that out a little bit, and then enhancing that with some of your plantings, as opposed to kind of a clear cut across the board. So I would be supportive of that.
Kathleen, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you so much, Charlotte, and thank you to the commission. I think Deb's done a nice job of explaining that. Just wanted to mention, we have photographs that perhaps aren't available to show now, but if you look at the bank where the junipers are from the lawn area, the junipers are only in about 1/4 of that. You can't see it from here. The other side, it appears that the prior owners may have removed some other plantings and it's just bare now with weeds. And so we're trying to, so I appreciate the comment about perhaps keeping and trimming the junipers, but what you can't see here in this picture to the left is that is just bare land with just poison ivy and poison oak on it. And then likewise to the left of the, if you're down on the grass to the left of the where the juniper is there too. I think I believe we had sent a photograph over, but I don't know, Deb, if you can pull that up now, but you can, it's just a different view when you look at it from the water behind you.
I do have a couple of photos if I can try to see if I can track that one down. Let's see.
It's a nice picture.
Yeah, if I get it a little bigger so everybody could see it. But so the junipers are on the left.
If you could go full screen with that, Deborah, that would be great. Blow that up. Thank you.
Don't think it's gonna make it.
Try to get it a little bigger there. So you can see the steps that we'd like to remove and replace with a path that comes sort of at an angle here, and the junipers are to the left. So we have a little gap here. Let me see if I can.
This is a great picture for me personally, and I as I said before a few minutes ago, me personally, I would not have a problem with the moving of the steps there.
Sure.
And enhancing that kind of brown area with some natives, all the while maintaining some of that juniper growth.
Mm-hmm.
And in trimming it, it doesn't look like it's not like it's 20 feet high. It's probably only 3 feet high at best. You could trim that down and maintain that and keep that looking fresh and lively and very vegetated there, and enhance the area around it is my comment.
Kathleen, what is in the foreground?
This is the lawn, lawn area.
Lawn.
Yeah.
So this photo, oh, sorry, Eric.
Yeah, it's juniper. Then you have what, 20 or 30 feet of grass, and then you have the little harbor.
That is correct. Yeah.
And
So,
go ahead.
Sorry, Eric. I just wanted to highlight in this photo that you can see the right and left sides of the juniper limit, whereas Kathleen was mentioning that it's open sort of vegetation on either side.
You know, one of the problems here is that we have people in the past that come in and said they're going to trim this and trim that, and then we find out there's not much left after they trim it. Well, what I would like to have is a more detailed, what I would call planting plan.
Sure.
Their coastal zone management has specific plants and items that are good in this area to stabilize banks and things like that. But you know, how much you're going to cut out is important, and I'm not entirely sure. I feel comfortable with what we're looking at right now. Kathleen, could you be more specific as to what you want to do in terms of bank stabilization?
Thank you very much. I wish I was the landscape architect and I could explain it all to you in great detail, but we spent a lot of time with Skyline, with Carol Lamb, discussing this. We were very aware of the concerns of the commission regarding the bank. And so what is proposed, and regrettably is in that small key down there, are the plants that are being recommended. I understand now if we were to leave the juniper, then perhaps we would work to use the same plants, which are designed there to stabilize the bank, but model them around the existing junipers. And so the junipers, in essence, when you look at this drawing here, they would be sort of, I guess, yeah, right in that, right maybe, yeah, right about in that, maybe a little bit above that grass
Yep.
walkway.
Oh, in here.
Right, right, that's where they are.
Is this area exposed to saltwater?
No, it's
No,
not.
so it's an upland area.
That's
It's-
correct.
Yeah, the little harbor doesn't overflow into this. So the plants don't have to be what I would call completely saltwater proof. Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they are or they aren't the ones that are proposed, but that's correct, Mr. Commissioner. It does not, the water does not go up. Occasionally if you have the winds coming in the proper direction and it's a high tide, you may get a little bit of overflow right by the dam there. But that's it.
And is it the idea that the entire slope would get the erosion control seed mix as well as the plants?
No, the northern portion here that's sort of this gray green is what they were looking at for the erosion control seed mix. And that's all that would be put down with the jute mesh on this. And then this would be the landscaped area with the plantings around the walkway and on this more, I guess, southerly sloped area.
Is there also a way I can almost look at this by looking at the contours and the elevation and see where the top of bank is, but
Yep.
to put the top of bank on the plan, it's on this other plan here.
Yeah, it's on
that
this
you
one.
have, but to superimpose the top of bank onto the landscaping plan.
We can do that.
Yeah. Just to, and again, you know, what we're getting at here is obviously there's removal of it as proposed, there's removal of vegetation and the adding of vegetation. And not only is it in the 50-foot buffer, although most of the houses in the 50-foot buffer, it's actually within the coastal bank. So without setting a precedence here, in and around all of in a harbor, where if in fact, you know, the commission were to approve a project like this, no doubt the neighbors and 2 doors down and 3 doors down and 4 doors down would also be saying, hey, well, you know, you did it over there. You need to let me do it as well. So we need to be protective all around.
Understood. So I think, you know, in thinking about this is why we focused more on enhancing as much of the vegetation. I know we're looking at removing the junipers, but other than that, it was more an enhancement project rather than, you know, remove, you know, like stripping the whole area and starting from scratch.
Deborah, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Could you describe your experience in coastal bank restoration and stabilization, please? How much have you done? Because this is a very specialized area of horticulture. It's not easy to succeed here. We've had a number of projects in my time on the Conservation Commission. We spent hours going through these. And do you have any special skill or experience? Because this is very much a specialist area of expertise in the horticultural area.
Sure. Myself personally, I do not have a detailed background in coastal bank restoration, but we do have a coastal department in Merrill that does coastal bank restoration as well as revetment walls and coastal work. And in this case here, we were just looking at more of an enhancement rather than trying to alter the bank. So from that aspect, if it's something that is a concern to the commission, I'm more than happy to speak with the Murphys again to see if this is something that could be minimized. If that would make the commission more comfortable.
you know,
I would personally feel more comfortable with the revised plan that addresses my comments about, I'm okay with the walkways and whatnot. I have a little concern with, or I guess a lot of concern with almost a clear cut of that area and a revegetation, because it's really the same thing. It's a clear cut, and then it's removal of the vegetation with the replacement of a vegetated area after the fact, after it's been, clear cut. So I would support a revised plan, keeping the walkways personally, and some of the vegetation that's already there on the bank. And if the bank needed to be enhanced with other vegetation, I would like to review that at a future meeting.
So from what I see here, there's quite a few trees in the area where you want to do your coastal bank slope planting seed mix. So this is a shady area, at least during the growing season. Looks like some substantial trees here. So would this just be laying down, essentially mowing the annuals that grow up there, and then laying down this carpet of jute with presumably implanted seeds in it, and then just letting it go? Or how much ground disturbance would you do here?
There wouldn't be any, and there's no tree removal. So exactly what you described is my understanding of what they would like to do in this area for just the enhancement. So the jute mesh is being put down to maintain and hold the seed mix so that it can take.
Yeah.
But there would be no clearing of brush. It would just be working around all of the existing trees that you have in here, and only in areas where they could, as you say, clear a little bit of the grassy vegetation and relay the jute mesh with the seed mix.
I mean, it seems like the brush and the trees are probably going to at least reduce the chances of any kind of serious erosion here. And those annual plants probably aren't contributing a whole lot to bank stability. And I mean, if you do a tree count there, go back, if you do a tree count in that area, you've got quite a few of them. I mean,
yes, there are.
It's 8, 10, maybe 12. If you go all the way to the end of the property line, that of course, that's beyond what you're planning to do. I mean, my feeling is that I'm not opposed to it necessarily. I'm just wondering, I think Jay made a good point that when we start to let people work on the coastal bank, which is a protected resource, we're opening ourselves up to at least criticism, at the very least, by neighbors who might want to do something like this, and for whatever reason we find that we don't approve of it. So I guess this would, from my perspective, it's like to see, maybe I'd like to just go out there and look at it and to feel comfortable with it. I mean, I like the idea that of how you're going to do it, the jute, the embedded seeds, and it sounds like that's probably the way to go to get your growth started quite well. And certainly, if it is an area of poison ivy, just like any homeowner, I'd sure like to see that gone in my place. So I understand some of the motivation here.
And I don't have a problem with the removal of the poison ivy, etc.
Yeah.
Tom, I think, and for other commissioners, you've probably driven by it's a beautiful property. You've probably been driven by there 100 times, if not more, without even knowing. You could see most of this, correct me if I'm wrong, from the car. Yeah. And don't even necessarily have to get out of the car unless you really want to get into the details, but you can see most of this from the road. It's a beautiful area.
So may I suggest something that we, as mentioned, is maybe add some limits onto this landscaping plan, show where the juniper cluster is so that we can clarify the limits and show that there's limited remaining vegetation within the areas where they're looking to do more of the enhanced landscaping with plantings. And then I'm not sure if we can clarify if there's anything else in here with regard to this slope. It is the steeper slope, so that, that's the reason why they're just trying to enhance that and stabilize that slope, as mentioned, without removing any of the vegetation that's on there.
Is that something that would happen in the spring? I mean, because right now there is you couldn't lay the jute down now with any level
Yeah.
of success. I mean, it would have to be a early spring or late fall, I would think.
So what's growing there now? I mean, is it tall grass of some sort, some native grass, or maybe even an invasive grass? And how are you gonna get to the point where your mix is dominant here, and you don't just have the same stuff poking through your jute and spoiling the whole effect, essentially?
Well, the hope would be is that if, again, this work wouldn't be done until next year. So we could focus on doing it in the spring before they, native grasses get established, put the jute mesh down and try to help encourage the seed mix to grow and hopefully take over or enhance the grasses that are already there.
Deborah, how are you going to remove the extensive and what I would call very strong web of invasive plants that are well entrenched there? Because your native grass mix doesn't stand a chance against entrenched poison ivy and all the other invasives that are probably there. You're gonna have the first thing you have to do is to deal with the invasives, and you wouldn't be able to spray or any herbicide or anything in that area. And I think you need to have a detailed program how you're going to control the invasives there before you start doing additional planning, or it's not going to succeed. It's like some of these other projects you've seen with other people who want to go in and sort of take a whack at the Phragmites or the Japanese knotweed. And we know in 5 years, it's all going to be back again because they're not firmly attacking the source of the problem, which is the invasives that are well entrenched. And I'm sure here you have tons of invasives like poison ivy. They're going to be very hard to get rid of. And what a lot of people do is they use herbicides on it, but obviously here herbicides would be out of the question.
Correct.
So what I would like to see is a detailed program of coastal bank restoration with a statement of objectives, the scope, how you're going to deal with invasives, what you're going to do, when you're going to start, the steps to the recolonization of the bank, and a real, what I would call a semi-professional program here. Short of that, I don't think you're going to succeed here. That's my own.
But we certainly had a parallel case here within the last year, and we had some very professional work done, proposed in the coastal bank, and you're probably well aware that it didn't fly with us.
Sure, and I can completely respect that. We wanted to have the discussion with you. If this is something that is a concern, then we can pull the coastal bank slope maintenance if that's or enhancement, this area here off the program, and we can just see how the slope continues. I think that's it was something that the homeowners were looking that they thought was something that would be helpful, but if it becomes something that's gonna cause more trouble than being an enhancement, we obviously don't want to encourage that. So we can look at removing that from the program and focus on the walkways and focus on the limits, showing the limits of the juniper area and show the impact to that, and work around enhancing the existing vegetation that's in that area now. If that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is that we have two projects here. And as Jay and Chris have said, I think
Yeah.
most of us agree with the walkway
Yeah.
and what's going on there. That, you know, that's kind of this is not rocket science. That's a good one. But the coastal bank maintenance, the clearing of the invasive species, that's a different project. All right. And I don't want to discourage you from doing it, because I think, you know, professionally getting rid of invasives is something we should be concerned about on the Conservation Commission, particularly in an area like this. But it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of planning and a great deal of professionalism to do it. So at some point, you probably were going to do it, whether it's part of this project or not. I guess it's up to
Maybe
you.
Yeah. Deborah, I would support your proposal that you made a few moments ago
Okay.
to move this project forward.
I would too.
Jay, I'd just like to add one thing, and that is that really this is three projects. I think the area that's being shown as seed mix is really it's a steep kind of undisturbed slope, and pretty naturalized. The area that's being shown as new planting, if you look at those pictures closely, you see a couple different varieties of yucca. You see the juniper. At one time, that was a landscape slope. I mean, I don't know when, 20 years ago, the junipers are quite large. So, what's grown in there is purely invasives. You could tell by the fact that in the spring there was nothing there, and now it's 4 feet tall. It's all honeysuckle and poison ivy and a couple other things. So I just wanted to point that out, because I do think that the area where they're showing new plants, I mean, it concerns me, because they're even the invasives are very stable at, or a certain level of stability. And anything you do to alter that might change it. But I do think maybe you think about this as three projects and not just two. But having said that, I think that the basic restoration of the pathway system, I think, is certainly something that I'd be supportive of.
Same here.
Go ahead.
So if I'm hearing correctly, we can take a step back and look at giving you some more information in this planting area here, maintaining the proposed walkway and patio, et cetera, and get a revised plan back into you.
I would think you'd want to separate all activity on the coastal bank from your walkway proposal. That's the cleanest, I think that's the cleanest way to do it.
I'm sorry, Tom, separate, highlighted on the plan, or?
No, actually make a separate proposal altogether for whatever you want to do on the coastal bank, and separate from the walkway. I think you've got strong support for your walkway renovation, and that can probably move ahead pretty quickly. The coastal bank is going to be a sticking issue, at least for me. I mean, I'm all in favor of seeing native plants on our coastal banks and in our buffer zones, but we've been pretty adamant about no disturbance in these areas, and I know we've turned down some. I think we've turned down some pretty nice looking projects because our bylaws don't quite accommodate them. And I think it's probably easier for you to separate your coastal bank activities from your restoration of the walkway, and just two projects there.
I hear what you're trying to say, Tom, but just as far as procedurally here, and I'm sure the applicant's looking for some form of direction, is that we still have one plan. We still have one notice of intent. It's still one complete application. So we'd like to have a final decision on it all. But are you trying to say like to separate out on the diagram itself?
No. Withdraw the notice of intent and draw up two new ones, one that deals with the coastal bank and one that deals with the walkway.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't support that. I think that administratively, procedurally, that's too much work. In my view, we have an application in front of us. I think we could, the applicant sounds like this is just the very first hearing. They will go back to the drawing board. We'll talk to the owner and come back with a revised plan in 2 weeks or 4 weeks and talk about it again. But I don't support withdrawing it and coming back and forward. I think they could take portions out of, if they wanted to, out of this current plan. But I think I would encourage the applicant to move forward with this plan and let the commission deal with this plan at a future hearing.
Yeah,
I might also recommend that commissioners set up with Charlotte a time to go out and actually inspect that bank and see what kind of condition it's in and see if it can't be enhanced to remove invasives and add new native species to actually kind of come to a compromise on what this whole program's about.
Yeah.
Jay,
I
I'm just trying to find something procedurally that can work quickly. I really, as much as my sympathies are for seeing native plants and removal of invasives in the coastal bank or in buffers, I see that I see a lot of barriers to approving the plan here.
Well, I hear you, Tom. Don't
And
disagree.
however we do it procedurally,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I mean, really.
This is just the first hearing, so let the applicant discuss the project with the owner and let them come back, and they may have answered all of your questions with the revised plan.
Sure.
For just to clarification from my end, as we are removing the steps that come down here and would like to replace it with this walking path, is there any concern with that portion of the project? So that we have, an accessible route down to the lawn area?
Oh, and just please describe again why is it a lesser slope going in that direction?
It's a flatter slope, so we're running more parallel with the contours rather than coming straight down the slope with the stairs. And so it would be a more accessible route for the family.
Okay.
That yard. So if no one objects to that, I mean, maybe we can look at the location of it, but we're hoping to keep that in the program unless someone has a strong objection to that.
Yeah, but according current thoughts now, that would be tied up with the overall project. That's what Mr. Pimpare wants. So that would be held up until we deal with an effective plan dealing with the invasives and the recolonization of the bank. So that path can't go ahead because it's all part and parcel of the same project. I'm getting a bit confused here. I would have thought that separating the earth and the construction and having a project on that, and then having another project, as Tom was talking about, which is the recolonization of the bank, the eradication of the invasives and all that replanting, that would be a separate project that may take much longer. But if you put them all together, they're all going to be tied up into the same project, which may take quite a while to get approved, I guess. But we don't know. We haven't seen it yet.
I just point out that this pathway is also in the coastal bank. And so in many ways, it's really no different from the controversy about putting down the jute with the seed mix.
Okay, well,
there obviously is access from the turnaround part of the driveway across the lawn to the to Little Harbor. So this is not the only, it's not like this is the only solution. I mean, you already have a solution where you don't even need a pathway.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kathleen again. I would certainly welcome any member of the commission to come. I'd love to be there. I'd love to work with Charlotte on a time that would work so that you can see it. There is the lawn is sloped, trying to get down where you were just describing from the driveway, and then there's a large area of pine trees there that really help that they inhibit some of the access there. So I think if you could see it, and whoever suggested that, we would welcome it, and we'd love to be there with you so you can envision what we're talking about. Certainly respecting the concerns that you all have.
Yeah,
That-
Ms. Murphy,
that
I
would be
can, I
great.
can see that from the satellite photo, and I understand completely. It looks like it is. You are kind of taking a shortcut through the woods here to get down there.
Yeah, hard to see it all in this one dimension, you know.
Yeah, I agree. So I'd be in favor of just taking a look and getting a better feeling for the whole thing.
So Charlotte, can I recommend that you work with the owner to set up a site visit? And in the meantime, we'll continue this hearing until, Deb, are you thinking the next hearing, which is the June 30th, or the one beyond that?
That sounds reasonable to me. I can reach out to Kara and we can work on adjusting the landscaping plan and adding the detail that's we're looking for here.
Okay, then we're going to continue this hearing until June 30th. And Charlotte will work with you to set up a site visit with some of the commissioners.
That would be great. Thank you.
And Ms. Keller, just to be sure that the next set of drawings should always have that top of coastal bank line on them. So it helps us understand which side of the line we're talking about.
We do have it on the site plan, unfortunately.
Yeah, I see it there. But it helps that we're on, I mean, you do have a very detailed planting plan here. So there's plenty of detail there. It's just, that's the other thing that really seems to be missing.
Sure.
To my mind.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your consideration. Greatly appreciated.
Okay. Going to move to our next hearing this evening. It's I'm going to read the public notice. It's for 270 Jerusalem Road, notice of public hearings. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 16, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for stormwater permit 22-18 to remove and replace an existing driveway and put on an addition at 270 Jerusalem Road for owner Leo Mahan.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Gabriel from Grady Consulting. I am a representation of Mr. Leo Meehan. So this project is for a stormwater permit. We are altering more than 5,000 square feet in the area. We're adding approximately 8,000 square feet of additional impervious area. The project itself is the rehabilitation repaving of the driveway, along with some expansion on the residence itself. There's going to be a back driveway area around here, and a garage over here. As part of our mitigation, we consider all the additional impervious of the roof, which we are infiltrating directly, and then all the additional runoff is all mitigated by this crushed stone bed. One issue that we had here is the amount of ledge on site. However, we did some test it and we did find that the groundwater elevation was pretty much around 4 feet under the surface there. So this is the reason why the crushed stone bed has a large footprint. It's because it's only a foot thick to allow for that separation of groundwater. Along with the construction, most of it, these areas are decks and paver areas around here, and there's also extensive landscaping in the area. The lot right now doesn't look that pretty, so there is a good amount of landscaping to be done in there. And if anyone has any questions, I would be glad to answer them.
Could you flip back and forth between the existing conditions and your proposal?
Sure. Okay. So this is the existing. We have the existing big concrete drive, then the driveway along this area. This is all exposed ledge. There is a terrace area here. He has a wall. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Then flipping over to the proposed. Really flipping back and forth will be a little bit difficult to see, but I can actually full screen here. There you go. Can everyone see both screens?
Yes.
So this is a little bit clear. There are some sections of the existing house that will be left. There are others that will be removed. But in all, the additional impervious area that's going to be added is 8,000 square feet.
Is 6,000 square feet?
8,000.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
8,000.
Okay, and can you just describe again, sorry, because this, I can see the color coding, but what is the makeup of the additional impervious area?
So this roof over here, this is like a canopy area that will be added. There is a small amount of pervious area that will be affected there. Out here in the back where this garage under area is right now a grassed area. So mostly it's this, and then the existing driveway is a little bit narrower than the one we're proposing. If I zoom in here, you could actually see the existing one under the proposed one. So the addition of the garage area and the pretty much straightening of the driveway and widening is what causes the 8,000 square feet.
So how much bigger is the house going to be?
Let me check the architectural here.
Do you have any other plans besides these architectural plans?
I have an architectural set.
Yeah, see, I'm not looking for any architectural plans. I'm looking for plans of pervious area now versus impervious, walkways, plantings, landscaping, etc.
Yeah, so that pretty much is this sheet. Has some of the areas of the landscaping, it's all separate because of the huge amount. So this is the landscaping plan. sorry. That's the landscaping plan, and I do not have a color coded of what's proposed impervious, but I could certainly get that to you.
That was going to be my next question, as far as making this a little color coding, that it's a little easier for the reviewer to look at with respect to grass, trees, etc. And also with respect to downspouts, infiltration chambers, stormwater runoff, etc.
Yes.
Jay, on the yellow, the drawing with all the yellow, it's got the downspouts. The gray is the gray and the yellow and the red and the brown are all impervious.
Yes.
Yeah. So
where are the downspouts going?
to the
So
pink.
the downspouts are going to a roof drain that's going, if you can see here, they're in red. They go all along the all the deck area outside, and then out one pipe, and then out directly into the crushed stone.
I have someone in the audience raising their hand, Mike Hilsinger.
Can we just wait a second, please, Charlotte?
Sure.
Let the commissioners finish.
He's actually a representative of the owner.
Okay,
Okay.
great. I'll promote him then. Thank you.
Now, the infiltration area is on the property, correct? It's not onto town property or right away?
No, it's in the property. It's in the property. Yes.
Okay, not on the
The
right of way.
property line is there. That is correct.
Okay. And does the addition to this house trigger a large home review?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Do the additions to this home trigger a large home review? I don't know how that works.
I would have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure.
Is that?
Okay. I'm sorry. This is Mike Hilsinger. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. This is Mike Hilsinger, 124 Norwell Avenue in Norwell. I am the property manager and project manager for the Means, and I can answer several of those questions. Going back to how much larger will the house be? The footprint remains relatively the same. What we are doing is replacing what is now an outdoor drying garden with the garage. So there is a stone wall that surrounds the area to the right, which defines this drying garden, which we will then convert into the footprint for the garage addition. So the footprint of the house itself stays the same for the structure, plus this garage, which is already defined by this drying garden wall. And then on the driveway side, sort of screened south towards the subsurface water management system, we are extending an existing patio across the front of the building. Hopefully that answers your question on the building size. We've already been through a large home review committee with this and received approval. And we're just following through now with the stormwater management portion of the design.
Mr. Padilla, I don't see, is there a storm drain on Jerusalem Road nearby here? It says, your design points all come to this common driveway. So presumably if your gravel infiltration unit overflows, it's going to end up on the common driveway, but ultimately, of course, it could end up on Jerusalem Road. So is there a town storm drain on Jerusalem Road that it might reach?
Well, what was considered in the design is that it will reduce the amount of flows that are going out to that point right now. So we're not adding any more water to the system than it is going right now.
Yeah, I understand that. But nevertheless, even the water that goes there now, I'm just curious where it's going because, right across the street is Little Harbor.
Yeah, from my observations, Mike Hilsinger again, from my observations, we don't have a lot of sheep feeding across this property. There's a lot of lawn area. This is a substantial lawn area. And it acts right now as a natural detention basin. We're actually adding more capacity to it. The common driveway, by the way, is part of this property. So the common drive is completely within this property line. Insofar as a storm drain outside of this property, there's not one that I'm familiar with. Doesn't mean one does not exist, but I can't speak to the existence or not of one. Observations that I've had on this property are that we don't have a lot of water leaving the property at all. And what we're adding is just something to, meet today's design standards, really.
Sure, but you're adding 8,000 square feet of impervious area. So of course, we're going to take a close look at that.
Sure.
I mean, that's a pretty substantial increase in impervious area. And something had to give here. I mean, it's some of what you described as being able to infiltrate some of that water is now either under a deck or covered with asphalt. So yeah, I mean, I didn't look in depth at the stormwater calculations. I think you did I think you guys did do a groundwater mounding analysis. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, I find that encouraging that you're not going to have a bathtub issue here.
Yeah, we are, since we are so close to the groundwater elevation, it is pretty much common practice to do a mounding calculation, make sure that there's no issues there.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions from commission? Charlotte, were you able to look at the calculations in the pre and post development numbers?
Yes, I can pull those up if anyone's interested in looking at them, but they did meet the standard 2 of the stormwater standards.
Okay. No other comments?
No other comments. Jay Pimpari make a motion to issue a stormwater permit for the project at 270 Jerusalem Road.
Second.
Having a motion and second issue stormwater permit for 270 Jerusalem Road. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower. Eric, you still here?
Muted.
Muted.
Eric Eisenhower abstain.
Jay Pampari,
Jay Pimpari, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 5-0-1.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Our next hearing this evening, continued from June the 2nd, is 221 Hull Street. This is an NOI 22-12 and stormwater permit 22-08.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind, I'm just going to share my screen. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Patrick Magoon. So I just need to. Where's the share screen button? I feel like they're always different. There we go. I apologize for that. My name is Patrick Magoon. I'm with DeSalle Burke, Sala and Associates. We are working on a project at 6 Grace Drive and 221 Hull Street. It's currently 2 vacant lots, butted by Grace Drive here to the south and Hull Street to the west. We were here about a month and a half, 2 months ago, so I won't go completely into it, but I will touch upon some of the changes and, touch upon a little for anyone that wasn't here. For one of the responses to the commission's request, we did do 3 test pits out on the site. We have 1 here, 2 here, and the 3rd one here. The soils were largely sandy loams, pockets of some silt. Test pit 1 hit some refusal at around 60 inches. Test pit 2, no refusal, we went down 74 inches. And the 3rd one out back, we hit it at 28 inches, which affected where we placed our drainage system. For people that remember, we did add, though we're not in the ACEC, we added the limits of the Ware River ACEC onto this plan. It's on the other side of Hull Street. The construction management plan is largely the same. You'll see in red here are our disturbance areas within the 200-foot riverfront area. Those have come down since we were last in front of you guys. And so those have changed slightly, as well as we have added this basement drain overflow from 10 Grace Drive. And we're calling out to have that protected because that was a concern of the neighbor that the abutter at 10 Grace Drive, that they wanted to make sure that would, stay functional and in place. So, our plan is to not disturb that during construction. Here we have the layout plan. The size of the building has remained the same since we've last been in front of you. We talked with the building inspector, John Hanlon, this week. We meet zoning dimensional regulations in that regard, and we're below the 3,500 required for the large home review. So we aren't required for that. A few things I did want to point out as far as layout goes. Previously, you'll see this Cape Cod berm here. It kind of ends right here. This is the high point of the driveway, which you'll see on the next sheet, which is the grading sheet. We previously had that Cape Cod berm extending all the way down this driveway. We just heard some concerns from both the abutters and the commission that maybe, and we proposed to put a stone infiltration trench leading out this way as opposed to the berm. We kept the berm up top because right here, which I can show you on the next sheet, you'll see a full-size catch basin. So you'll see right here the peak, everything this way flows to that catch basin, everything this way flows off towards Grace Drive there. So we kept that Cape Cod berm there, to help any runoff if there were any going down to this abutter down here, because they are lower. So that berm is there to direct any water along that edge to this catch basin over here. Another thing that we did do, actually, if I can go back to construction management sheet, is we originally proposed to remove this tree right here. It's 24-inch deciduous. We are proposing to keep that. We were able to make that work. So previously we were proposing to cut down 6 trees within the 200-foot, and now it's going to be 5. And that's spelled out in this tree removal schedule over here. Back to the layout. Oops. Back to the grading. So one major thing that's changed since last time was we were previously proposing to install an underground perforated PVC pipe and stone system for detention and slight infiltration of a portion of the driveway and all of the building. Due to some concerns due to the ledge, we've designed a rain garden here with a 1/2 foot tall berm for it, which will now take the place of that infiltration system. Another thing that we did as far as capturing rainfall is all of the roof flow. You'll see these are the downspouts here. Right there, those circles in the corners, they're going to be directed to a 7,000 gallon concrete cistern to be used for irrigation purposes, try to capture some of that. And there is an if this were to fill up, there's an overflow of that to the rain garden. Back to the grading.
So Patrick, the first 7,000 gallons of any storm is collected in that chamber, and then anything over 7,000 overflows to the rain garden. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it's strictly from the roof itself.
What is that? A 1/4 inch storm, 1/2 inch storm? Have you calculated out the volume of the roof, and what type of storm where they would capture the 7,000 gallons?
I don't have that offhand. I can certainly provide that.
I'm just curious.
No, understood. I can certainly provide that, but I do not have that offhand at the moment.
Yeah, I took a look at that, and a 2-year storm would more than fill it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really, what we need to look at perhaps is, I mean, I'm sorry, a 10-year, you didn't do a 5-year analysis. I think a 2-year storm just fills it. There's no 5-year analysis, but a 10-year storm is going to put a lot of water into that rain garden.
Yeah, well, to that point.
And I guess my question is, it doesn't look like you've routed, you have shown the routing on this to the rain garden, but it's not clear under what circumstances that routing would actually occur and which level of storms. And then your design point, of course, is down there on Hall Street. Yep. So you can see the total, but it's a little tricky to try to literally follow the water here.
I mean, I have a watershed plan I can bring up quickly for you.
Yeah.
1 sec.
Try to hold it steady. You're kind of making me seasick jumping. Every time you touch that screen with your mouse, the map jumps, at least on my screen, and it's very distracting.
All right. Well, here's the watershed plan.
Maybe you can pick a zoom in here, pick a zoom, and then use your scroller to get us from one part of the map to the other, rather than jumping in and out at scale.
Okay.
Hard to follow.
Okay. So this is the existing watershed broken into flows to Hull Street by X1, flows to Grace Drive, X2. And that's the existing, that's the point where they break, and that's how it works.
Pat, I think we're looking at the site plan still.
Oh, are you? Okay. Let's see. Share. Okay. Sorry about that. You see it now? Should be orange lines.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. So this is how we broke down the existing watersheds into 2 sub areas, X1 and X2. X1 flows to Hull Street. X2 flows to Grace Drive. So that's pretty straightforward. And here is our proposed. P1, just uncollected flows to Hull Street. P roof is P7, that's going to the cistern and then going to the rain garden, and that overflows to Hull Street. P6 goes directly to the rain garden, and when that overflows, it goes to Hull Street. P5 comes this way, gets collected by the catch basin, which is routed the line's not shown on this plan, but it's routed to the rain garden over here. When that overflows, it goes to Hull Street. And then as far as the flows to Grace Road, P3, uncollected, as it currently is as well, goes to Grace Drive. P4 is, largely collected by this infiltration trench, and any overflow will go to Grace Drive, and P2 is uncollected, going to Grace Drive. We have provided the runoff totals, and they have all been reduced in that regard. So I don't know if you had another question regarding that.
Well, here's my concern. I'm looking at this rain garden that's right up against essentially a cliff that's maybe, I don't know, is it 30 feet, maybe 25 feet down to the parking lot, something like that?
Maybe.
And your rain garden's right against it. Anything that infiltrates in there is going to go right through the rock fractures. If you look at that, that's an old quarry face, and you can see fractures everywhere. And during the winter, you can see icicles hanging where groundwater is coming out of the rock and freezing. So my concern is that water is, it's going to infiltrate right into the cracks of that bedrock and right into your neighbor's parking lot, turn it into a skating rink.
Okay. Our calculated overflow for the 100 years, I have it not even getting to this overflow right here. So, I mean, I understand.
So you have a liner in your, an impervious liner in the bottom of your rain garden? Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, so what I said was any of the water that permeates or enters the ground, the bedrock below your rain garden is not going to flow to Hull Street. It's going to flow right into your neighbor's parking lot.
And we do have an under drain that it is directed that way to avoid disturbing the 200 front. If I can redirect that this way, if that's preferred, but
that'd work great if you were to seal the bottom of your rain garden. You're missing the point here. You're filling your rain garden full of water. It has a leaky bottom. It leaks into the bedrock. It moves 5 feet in some cases or less, maybe, to the edge of that cliff and goes right into that parking lot.
I understand your concerns, but
excuse me, Pat, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
My name is Jim Burke. I'm the stamp on the design that you're looking at right now. I hear what you're saying, Mr. Bell, and I understand what you're talking about. As far as solving that, we could change the configuration, maybe pull it away from the wall. What kind of buffer would you think would be safe for protection for that wall?
Oh, you could do a dye test out there and find out.
Not a bad idea.
What we did see on this site, some of the historic photos was there are a series of trenches that have been constructed there in the distant past. Nobody seems to know quite when that.
Yeah, that was not us, by the way.
and the abutter made the statement in your last meeting that those trenches filled up full of water, and they stayed full of water. We were wondering what's with all the algae in these things,
Yeah, I saw that too. I did see a lot of sloughing of
this is an unusual site. I mean, here you've got this quarry wall right next to you, and it's not very far away from where you want to dispose of your water. I like this idea of a cistern. I wish I had one myself, so it cut down my summer water bill. That's a great idea. I'm all for it. Maybe 7,000 gallons is insufficient, though. I don't know.
Yeah, it was really, honestly, it's the size is kind of driven. Once you get up over 5,000 gallons, it kind of fine tuned with regards to the footprint. Now you're just dealing with depth. I got down to, I want to say, elevation 29, doing the test holes, and the bottom of that tank, I want to say, is at 28. So we don't have there certainly is ledge out there, obviously, but where we're digging and where we're proposing to construct the stormwater controls, it seems to have some decent depth and decent soils to actually recharge the stormwater. Maybe we could put line that edge that along the wall, maybe, 10 feet off the wall, we come up with an impervious barrier to, kind of push the water down as opposed to north. And we could try,
Let me just remind you that we regulate for performance, not for design. So let's say we approve this and you guys build it, and then your neighbor finds that they have a serious problem in their parking lot, particularly during the winter. Then we're all in trouble. You're in trouble. We're in trouble. Your client's in trouble. So it's really, I think most cases here, our infiltration systems are somewhat straightforward. This is a complicated place because we have so much bedrock, and that bedrock in some cases is fractured and in other cases it isn't. So it's very hard to know which direction the groundwater is going to flow, your infiltrated water. And yes, technically you can run HydroCAD and say that, yes, we're going to reduce runoff and increase infiltration, but increasing infiltration in a case like this might be a real problem for your neighbor because they're not just down gradient, they've got a cliff between you and them.
True. And to tell you the truth, I mean, there's probably, and I can't speak to it, that I've seen it, but it looks as though there's probably groundwater flowing through there now.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the volume generated off the site, I mean, for each and every storm event, for whatever storm event falls, it basically it's contained. We have to design our systems based on, as you well know, the 2, the 10, the 25, and 100 for those specific volumes. Now, water has memory as well. So if it's going to go in that direction, it's going to go in that direction until you stop it from going in that direction. And there's ways that we can actually change that. If the recharge volume is minimized and we direct the larger storm events away from the wall, that might be another way that we could solve this issue and maybe come up with a I don't know, like I've done manifolds in the past that you surcharge a pipe and you have it at a certain elevation and it'll mimic sheet flow across the lot. There are probably other different solutions, but I hear what you're saying, and I think from a design standpoint, a setback can be established. I'm not too sure how, a dye test, I mean, it's a good idea, but getting enough volume of water to actually be able to identify the dye coming out of the wall, maybe, we might end up getting some false reads. I mean, it'd be difficult to find. I mean, finding it in a pipe or a conduit is certainly one thing, but finding it on a wall of that size.
It's a pretty common technique in groundwater analysis.
Okay.
Dye tests. Mostly we think of infiltration as being a good thing.
Right.
In this case, you're taking infiltration that was spread out over a large area and now infiltrating it into a small area. And that small area is right up against the property line against a 25-foot vertical wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems to me that is a risky strategy. And I think you were sort of moving towards something that might work better in the sense that tune this so that you aren't reducing your runoff quite as much. You aren't trying to infiltrate as much water. I'm all for collecting the water in the cistern. I think that's a great idea. You're going to save those people a lot of money in a water bill.
Yeah, and you certainly could. I mean,
but the long and short of it is maybe you don't really want to drive that infiltration as hard as you're driving it. Maybe you need that runoff from at least the house itself and the driveway. You might be better off sending it due west instead of to the north there.
Right. Okay, I hear what you're saying.
I just think with time you're going to find that the new owner is going to find that rain garden is leaking into next door. And then, you know, if it starts interfering with their business, they're going to sue them. And they're going to come back at us and say, why did you approve this?
Yeah, understood. You know,
Well, I just see, this is one of the more difficult groundwater situations that I think I've seen in any of these cases that have come before us. And it's going to call for, I mean, you've already made a very original, at least from our experience, I think, original partial solution with your cistern. That's a great idea, again. But I think you need to think about where that overflow is going to go out of the cistern a little bit more carefully. Maybe you need to do something on that slope, although it's pretty steep there, obviously, and it's probably pretty rocky. So it's going to be hard to infiltrate anything there. You can see what's happening with where your rain garden is. You picked the only sort of flat spot that's downhill from the house. So that, I'm sure that's what drove the selection of that site.
right.
And had there not been a quarry right next to it, probably would have been fine.
Well, you know, the funny thing about recharge is the way the regulations are written. You know, you have C and D soils, and you know, in D soils, and I've done it, and it drives me crazy. You know, you're in West Roxbury, and you know, Boston Water and Soil wants you to recharge, and you're in ledge, and you put in a leaching pit, and you know it's not going to work, and why am I doing this? Well, because that's what the regulations say. And so in Cohasset, that particular situation arises with regards to the volume. The only way you get rid of the volume is by recharging. You put you know, square foot one of impervious area on a lot. Okay, well, sorry, you know, you now don't comply. So what you're asking is, and I agree with it. You know, is this particular site, with the amount of rock on it, it really has, you know, majority of D soils. There's certainly some C's on there, just by observation. But, you know, I could certainly design something, a detention system that would work, and release that over time and meet the peak flows for every storm event that you want to think of. But, you know, that's got to run. And, you know, that's your peak is going to occur slow, and the volume is going to release slow, and there won't be any danger of flooding or anything like that. And the volume of the storm, of that particular storm that we're detaining, will remain the same as if it wasn't. Eventually we get to the same spot. So that volume doesn't change, really, if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
So that's just my long way around of saying, you know, if we go without recharge, we'll be looking for a waiver from your local regs. That's all.
Well, what I'm saying is, yeah, you still have to stay within that envelope that you have to work with, pre and post conditions.
Right.
Maybe you can balance. I really didn't look at the numbers, how far under the current recharge you are right now. I don't know whether it's a large percentage or a small percentage.
Yeah, we could certainly sneak up on the peak, and we definitely have room for that.
I think you should use it.
Yeah, I will take another look at it. You know, the cisterns might be another, you know, increase in the volume of that may help. I'll go over it with Pat, and we'll figure out a way to get, you know, protect that wall from any sort of additional groundwater recharge breakout kind of a situation. So we'll certainly discuss that, and we may need a little bit more than 2 weeks to solve that. But we'll work on that. If we can go through, if I could let Pat finish up with regards to, I'd say the last thing that we'd like to discuss is the other waiver.
Jim, sorry, Jim, can I interrupt you for a quick sec?
Sure.
We had a relevant question in the audience about the cistern. Michelle Guthrow from 10 Grace Drive just said, can you explain what happens to the cistern in the winter when it freezes? When or if it freezes, will it overflow or continue to drain?
it will continue to drain. You know, you're not going to be, that tank will be insulated enough in the ground where it won't be free, it won't freeze. You'll end up, you know, disconnecting the pump and the like, and it'll continue to it'll be full, so you will lose the effectiveness of it. But we'll take a look at that and see if we can use that for detention as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And then as far as the other item was the driveway and the fact that I'd like clarification on your position, the commission's position on the square footage of the 1,000 square feet of disturbance, over the 1,000 square feet of disturbance. What we're proposing is, remove and replace the driveway. Now, we can, and that falls into that threshold of 1,000 square feet. We certainly can construct a driveway that's outside the 200-foot buffer because we have access to enough frontage on Grace Road to come down straight. I did a quick design and it came up with about 658 square feet of additional impervious and additional tree removal and probably about another 1,600 square feet of additional disturbance in outside the 200-foot, but in the front yard of kind of what's in the front of 10 Grace Road. That's it right there. That's the revised design. If we eliminate that 1,000 square feet, we can kind of do that. And so I feel using the existing infrastructure is just a smart way to go, to tell you the truth.
I would second that and support that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then I'll be honest with you. I'm good. I think that, the landscaping speaks for itself, and we can certainly, add some trees to that. But I think what Mr. Bell's brought up with regards to getting a little bit more creative with the stormwater and the recharge and the like is something that I'll work with Pat and Charlotte and see if we can come up with something a little bit more effective.
Great.
Great.
So can we agree to continue this until June 30th?
Yeah, if that's June 30th. Where are we now?
16th,
No.
16th.
I'd be honest with you. I'd probably look at maybe the meeting in July.
Yeah, so that'll be July 14th.
July. Ooh. That's my wife's birthday. Yeah, Pat can do it.
There you go.
Are there any neighbors out there that would like to speak on this? Not the, sorry, that's your job.
I think that's fine. That was the only question came up, and I think we're okay. So
all right, excellent.
We're just going to continue to July 14th then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Joe.
The next hearing this evening is 46 Black Rock Road. Is that correct? Is it Black Rock or is it Black Horse? Yeah. Okay. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 16th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for Stormwater Permit 22-16 to add an addition and deck, replace an existing garage, and pave a portion of the driveway at 46 Black Rock Road for Paul Harrison.
Hi, Joe.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Joe Webby from Webby Engineering. I'm here representing the Harrisons at 46 Black Rock Road. I don't have the ability to share my screen, so Charlotte, if you have a copy of the plan, you can put that up, that'd be great. The Harrisons would like to do an addition that involves removing a portion of an existing porch and replacing it with an addition, doing a deck, constructing a accessory building, as well as paving a portion of driveway, which is going to result in a total project increase of impervious area of approximately 3,575 square feet. In order to handle the stormwater runoff, we've designed a system of Coltech 100 chambers. Below the driveway, approximately 15 chambers in stone to handle the roof drains of the proposed garage, as well as some roof drains on the new addition. We've gonna direct this stormwater to a trench drain that will then, bring the water to the infiltration system. We went out there in early April to explore the site for feasibility of locating a system. We dug a couple of test pits, one to the western portion of the property by the road, and another one by the existing garage. We were able to find approximately 4 feet of naturally occurring material before hitting ledge. And that's kind of what we used as our design criteria. I guess are there any questions?
So in this new design, are you altering the grades at all? Because they seem to be running through your buildings and driveways.
Yeah, the grade is coming up a little bit where the proposed asphalt is. That grade's coming up, I mean, maybe a foot and a half. And then it's kind of blending into the existing as you move southerly towards the proposed garage.
Is the proposed garage, is that on slab? Or is that
That is good. Yeah, that is a slab on grade. Yep. I mean, there'll be probably a frost wall, anchored to the ledge and then, backfilled.
Okay.
What's the final elevation of the garage?
The garage, I'd say, is going to be approximately, 83.3, 83.5, somewhere in that, vicinity of the slab.
It's almost what current grade is there right now. It's safe to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be up a little bit higher than the current grade. Where the front of the garage is at approximately 82.5 now, more or less. So I mean, it's going to be about a foot higher than that.
Okay.
Mr. Webby, if you had a chance to review the review done by Ross Engineering.
Yeah, yes, I have. I got the review. I think that it's reasonable, the concerns that are there. Certainly we'd like to, address them, and make every attempt to, it's a tough site. We all recognize that it's a tough site. There's a lot of ledge out there. And obviously we want this thing to perform. So I didn't see anything in the letter that, I found problematic. Certainly it looks like we might have to do a little more homework and clarify a few things on the plan. But other than that, I think it's things that we can handle.
This is a rather large infiltration chamber. You have one test pit, which actually isn't situated where you've proposed to put your infiltration chamber in. It's close, but it's not within the footprint. And I agree completely that we all recognize anybody that's been up and down Black Rock Road or lives in this neighborhood knows very well that soils are scarce here. They're thin. I know I don't live very far away, and if I dig in my backyard, sometimes I can get down 4 feet. Sometimes I can get down 4 inches. And those two holes can be separated by about as far as I can spread my arms. So I don't think one test pit is very necessarily representative of the area that you're proposing to put your large infiltration chamber. So I would recommend that you test that a little more thoroughly.
Yeah, I believe that that's
At least I would think, I mean, you're you're draining a lot of runoff into this thing. And I think that you should be able to assure us that it's going to work a little bit better if you had more evidence for that.
Yeah, I believe that that's fair. At the time that we were out there, we weren't, 100% sure of what type of system we were going to be designing, or, where we were going to, put it. We were, investigating the site for areas that, could possibly do this. So, I mean, I've spoken to the Harrisons on this, and, and they understand that it's probably a good idea for us to go out there and, and dig a couple more holes. Locate where this thing's going to be on the ground, and then, dig a couple holes in either end, and ensure that we have at least 4 feet of material there.
I mean, you have a big area of down gradient there to the west. You put one test pit in, but there's still probably a lot to look at in that direction, and that certainly would get it away from your neighbors. And another question, you're going to put that infiltration chamber underneath the asphalt, is that?
Correct, it's going underneath the asphalt.
Yeah, so I presume you're going to have some sort of inspection manhole that will be in that pavement? Is that
yes,
correct?
the Coltech chambers have an inspection port that will have some type of manhole. Yep.
Yeah. So you might look to areas where there's trees or something, give you some indication that there might be some more soil than you think. And at the very, if you're moving down gradient to the west, at least if this thing does start to create a groundwater mound and it leaks out around your structure, that it's going to end up going down to Black Rock Road instead of into your neighbor's backyard. In any case, the site that you've selected, I'd like to see at least more representative test pits to confirm that indeed you've got the necessary separation. If you don't mind, take a picture of a couple of those pits, the soil profiles.
Certainly, we can do that. Yeah, we can certainly do that.
We also
I'd
have
like to read for the record from Kevin Wren, who I think also the author of the letter that came. 44 Black Horse Road, 46 Black Horse Road.
Black Rock.
Sorry, Black Rock Road. Structures are very close to the property line, runs down the middle of the driveway of 46 Black Rock Road with an approximate 4-foot easement on our property. Additionally, the land in our neighborhood has lots of ledge. That's his comment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're concerned about the ledge, which is why we're talking about, pumping the brakes a little bit and going back, digging some more, test holes. I don't think that there's going to be any more, overburdening of the easement going in and out of there, any more than there is now. Obviously, during construction, it may be a little bit, there's going to be more traffic. I think that after that's, completed, I don't think there's going to be any more traffic than there is right now, going in and out of there. That driveway now is a crushed shell driveway. The majority of it in that area is gonna remain crushed shell. Basically where we're directing the stormwater on the asphalt towards the trench drain is essentially going to be a type of berm, behind that's, going to prevent the water from, spilling out onto the driveway and toward the Wrens.
What about the cul-de-sacs themselves? They have an overflow, correct?
Correct. And that was one of the comments in the review letter that I tend to agree with. I think it was number 4, I believe, that we should have, and it should be called out on the plan, that we should have some overflow, and that obviously it should be directed, southwest, into that area, perhaps with a little, swale or something enhanced with some, landscaping, so that, in the event that we have, back-to-back 100-year storms in a weekend or something like that, that the water is not going to be, coming out of any other place except for, into the overflow.
Any other comments, commissioners?
No comments. I did read the letter from the abutter. It sounds like the applicant is willing to evaluate the letter and make its own decision on what it wants to do next. A couple test pits here, and see you in a couple weeks.
Mr. Weeby, that's agreeable to you to continue to June 30th, or would you like to go to July 14th?
Let's try for June 30th and see how we do. I mean, this is all going to be hinged on, obviously, us, getting some favorable test pit results, and it's going to take a little bit of coordination to do that. And if we're not able to do that by the 30th, then we'll let the board know.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, we have Paul Mirabito from Rouse Engineering raises his hand in the audience. Do we want to promote him to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, Paul. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Paul Miravito from Ross Engineering. As the letter states, we were asked by the northerly abutter, Mrs. Wren, to review the proposal, and we would certainly look forward to our comments being addressed. Again, just to summarize, the Wrens are concerned that that there be no water in any given storm that would flow onto their property from the chamber system. As the plans show, the ledge is very shallow. It's only down 4 feet. The first 2 feet is what we call the A and B layer, which is commonly known as the aluminum subsoil layer, but that's proposed to be replaced with crushed stone. But one of the other issues is that there's a question as to why the 3 trees on the upper right-hand corner of this plan need to be removed. I haven't seen them, to be honest with you, but the Wrens are concerned about those. I think those are shade trees, but I could be wrong. We don't know why those need to be removed, because they aren't near the proposed work area. And again, we agree with the comment that they'll look at putting a swale on the right-hand side of the applicant's driveway. So any water that would surcharge in that chamber, which is fairly shallow, we are concerned about a bathtub effect. But if you get some very heavy rainstorms, either in one event or several smaller storms over a period of, say, 2 to 5 or 7 days, there's always the possibility that chamber system could fill up. And if it does, where's the water going to run? But again, I think the engineer is going to address all these in his review comments, which we would like to have an opportunity to review prior to the next meeting. So I think with that, I'll end and send it back to the commission.
Thank you. Okay, so this hearing is continued until June the 30th.
Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for not doing this earlier. We have 2 hearings which are being continued. Dolan Lane is a new hearing, NOI 22-21 and stormwater permit 22-17. We don't have a public record to read into that. That's being continued till June the 30th. And 46 Border Street, which was continued from May the 5th, NOI 2211 and stormwater permit 2206 is continued to July the 14th. That concludes hearings for this evening. Charlotte, I think you have a couple certificates of compliance you're hoping to.
Yes,
Okay,
so, yeah, I can go through these quickly. So 2 of them are actually follow-ups from what we previously looked at, one at 138 Atlantic Ave, which was a pool and patio project, and the other one at 75 Border Street, which was new dwelling construction. So I can follow up on the comments and stuff that we had that we denied the COC request for and give you guys updates there. So I'll start with the easiest one, which is 138 Atlantic Ave. They still had to plant the grass. So they have now done that and provided pictures. And, that was really the only item that was pending at the time when we entertained the COC request. This was all dirt. And then one more clarification request that I got was they are not planning on doing granite stepping stones. There was supposed to be a path that goes along the back of the house here to the pool and the patio, but they are okay with closing the permit out because they do not want to do that. They're just happy with the grass. And then if we were to entertain a COC, we have a standard boilerplate about pool maintenance. So just recommend that we kind of include that as an ongoing condition, that they have to maintain pool best management practices. And then of course, no pesticides and everything in the buffer zones.
Does this property have a fence around it? Oh, it has a cover, electric cover?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first one. Do we want to vote now or do we want to vote at the end?
Let's do it now. Jay Pimpara, make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 138 Atlantic Avenue, bringing into the record that conditions all what you had mentioned, Charlotte, about the pesticides, et cetera, which I think is standard language anyway.
Yep.
I have a second.
Second.
Having a motion second to issue a certificate of compliance. We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton.
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell.
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower. Eric.
Muted.
Aye.
Jay Pimpari.
Jay Pimpari, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 6-0.
All right. And then the next one, I'll pull up some photos this time. The next one is for 75 Border Street. They had some arborvitae plantings that were in the buffer zone, and we denied the COC request because we wanted those removed. There were 3 in total, and as you can see from the photos, they have been removed. And right now it's just existing, any weeds and stuff that are coming in from the wetland area. They have not done anything else since our discussion back in December, but they have provided a list of native plantings that they previously installed because that was what we wanted to see. So the arborvitaes are gone, but I will say the plants here, like the inkberries and other bushes here. This is they provided a list that I can pull up of all the native plants that they did. I double checked, and every one of those plantings are from the our plant lists. So there, and then this was the grass that was the native grass that was installed along the dock that was all previously done and approved by the previous agent. So the one update was just to take the arborvitaes out and give us a plant list. And so those are the 2 updates for this COC. And then I'll just note that as there's a dock here, that is a separate permit. So whenever they ask for a COC, that will be evaluated differently. I'm sorry, separately from this.
What COC are we doing?
This is the 2018, it's NOI 18-21 stormwater permit 18-31. It was for the house construction, which involved a deck, a pool, a patio,
Okay.
and yeah.
A pool?
Yeah, this is the pool. These were a lot of the changes to the pool, the patio, and the house in general. This was the one, I don't know if you guys remember, where there were a lot of deviations to this plan that were all okayed by Jeff, the previous agent, and obviously should have probably gone through a different means of review with the commission. But I did review all the correspondence that a lot of it was discussed with the previous agent.
Okay. Entertain a motion?
Jay Pampara, make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 75 Border Street, specifically for NOI 18-21 and stormwater permit 18-31 only.
Can we do the same standard no herbicides, pesticides in the buffer zone? I figured
Yeah.
that should just be a standard ongoing condition.
Please include that in all the orders.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And the swimming pool.
Yes, and pool BMPs, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion in a second, we'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Jay Pampari,
Jay Pampara, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 600. Charlotte,
And then the last one is a dock project. This one is more recent from 2021. This is NOI 21-15 for 51 Gammons Road. So I went out with the engineer and we looked with the as-built and the previously approved plan together. There were no changes from the Chapter 91 license. So the plan that we approved back in 2021 was the plan that was utilized. There were, I would say these were very minor deviations, but I'll just list them briefly. If you look at the approved plan and the as-built, the distance from the dock ramp to the salt marsh, so this part right here, is just slightly further away than previously permitted, which is a good thing. So it was supposed to be 28.6 feet from here to here, and it's it is 30.1 feet. So it's just about a foot plus difference between where the ramp is and where the edge of the salt marsh is. And then the ramp and the pier converge at a location slightly further away from the salt marsh versus on the approved plan. So this little part right here, it's literally just a bit further up from where it was supposed to be on top of the salt marsh. So you can see it on the plans. I can pull up the plans if that's easier, but just, it was a very minor thing that I just noticed. And then the 12 by, oh, sorry, what was that?
Sorry, nothing.
Oh, that's good. And then the 12 by 16 foot float, you know, the one that's at the end here at the end of the dock is angled slightly further away from the property line. So the distance from this property line on the left here that isn't in the picture is just slightly further away. So we previously permitted 26 feet. They did it 28.1 feet. So the angle again is just a little bit further away from the property line. And then the biggest, like, it's like the biggest of the minor changes is that they did not do, there's one less set of pilings between the pier from where it ends here to the ramp. So these, you know, pier structures here with the X support cross structures, there's one less set. So the plan, if you look at the detail, approved 9 of them. And if you count in the picture here, there's 8 of them. So I notified the engineer about those and sent those to her. And obviously they didn't have any concerns with one less set of pilings in the salt marsh. But those were the minor deviations that I noticed by looking at the plans and looking at what's on site. And they will have to file for a COC with Chapter 91 after a COC is issued by the commission for an order of conditions.
I'll entertain a motion.
Jay Pampara, make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for the 51 Gammons Road, notice of intent 21-15.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion in a second, take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Jay Pampari,
Jay Pampara, aye.
Chris McFarland. That vote passes 600. Next item on the agenda tonight is minutes for approval. We have May the 5th, May the 19th, and June the 2nd. Has anyone got comments on those meeting minutes?
No.
Make a,
No.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Jay Pampari,
Aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 6-0. Okay, before we get into report from the agent, any 48-hour issues? Okay, Charlotte. Short and
right.
sweet.
All right, I'll go through these quickly. So the Route 3A sewer improvement project, they have their Mass dot permit. We had a pre-construction meeting last week with literally everybody, so it was a huge meeting. They are going to install the erosion controls at some point next week. So I'll be inspecting those before construction starts. They anticipate finishing by the end of August or early September. So it'll be a few months, but just in case, just so you guys are aware with traffic, it'll get a little busy over there. 55 Gammons Road has received like a Chapter 91 review notice, so they don't have their license yet. There were a few minor changes that I notified Chris about, and those are related to the comments from DMF. So we don't have any concerns with those, so we'll approve those administratively. So whenever they get their Chapter 91 license and everything is set up there, I will do a pre-construction visit before they start. 147 South Main Street, they now have a new building permit, just so everyone is aware. There are some concerns with the neighbor about the installation of the fence, which has now been done. And we are keeping a close eye on the invasive removal. There was a special condition in our order of conditions that if the applicant were to use herbicides, it has to be approved by me and the chair. So I will keep you guys posted on that. And then last but not least, Sawyer Street.
Charlotte, which one was that? Which is 147?
This is 147 South Main with the old gas station that burned down, and they're putting in, I believe, residential units. Yeah.
Charlotte, this was a big bone of contention with some of the neighbors and whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah, when they do, I've seen like excavators out there for what seems like months now. I don't know. I haven't been by there in a week or so. I don't know what's going on, but when the excavation does start, can you make sure that you're out there to look at those holes? There was talk about underground storage of oil potentially being diverted into the ground. It wouldn't surprise me if you were to encounter, if you see any oily sheens or any volatile compounds, or you won't be able to see them, but
you'll smell them.
You'll smell them, yeah. Or total hydrocarbons, etc. During the excavation. If there's anything funky with that excavation, just, really oversee that
Soil
excavation.
discoloration too, Charlotte.
Yeah.
There's a number of clues there. I mean, ideally, you should have a PID for this, but just your visual observation would be valuable.
Okay. No, that sounds good. I'll keep an eye on it. We're definitely in close contact with the neighbor as well, so we're keeping a close eye on this project. And then last,
before you move on, this project has changed since we issued our permits. So please if you can get the permitted plan and the building permit plan, because it went to the planning department. They required not the planning, the planning commission. Is that what they're called?
Planning board, yeah.
Planning board. The planning board, they made changes to the plan. They were supposed to come back to us. They never did. We're gonna have the same old problem when it comes to, certificate of compliance. They're gonna want us to say, oh, everything's fine. But my understanding is that the plans have changed, so.
Okay,
Pull
yeah,
them out and be ready to let us know at the next hearing or whatever, or get in touch with the applicant and say, you got to come back.
okay, yeah, as far as I'm aware, I haven't heard of any updates, but I'll just double check on that, because the building permit, I put in the most current version of the plan, which is affiliated with our order of conditions, but I will check on that.
My understanding is both planning and zoning had issues with the plan that was presented to us.
I see. Okay,
Now,
I can double check.
either they caved, or they're going to ask us to cave.
Okay, I'll look back and touch base with planning and zoning too. Okay, and then Sawyer Street, I'm sure you guys have seen that this is a very active project. There were, I believe, Eric, thank you for letting me know about this. The row of hemlocks had exposed roots, so we quickly addressed that. We walked the site with the arborist, the town arborist, who recommended covering those roots and wood chips to, keep the temperature less hot, obviously, than if they were exposed directly to the sunlight. I will.
Cheryl,
Yeah.
I see what they've done. It's like serving barbecue chicken at 105 degrees inside. All right. All they've done is cover up the roots are already killing. This is a disaster. Tell me, who owns those trees?
So,
and have they explained?
Yeah, so the arborist, I will say, is not optimistic about the health of those hemlocks. And so we have a special condition that the town will replace those hemlocks if legally feasible with the owner. The owner is what's the road? Not Grace Drive.
Fair Oaks.
Yeah, Fair Oaks, 2 Fair Oaks Lane. I actually know her because she helps out with some of the town greeters. So I've been keeping her in the loop about what's going on. I will say, like I said, the arborist was not optimistic. And so if the town does have to replace those, it will be also in the report. Chris and I did a walk back in April. We're still waiting for the report from the arborist about the health of all the trees that they're supposed to monitor. So we will be watching those very closely, but yes, they were definitely compromised with the digging, and Let
me ask you a question. In order to do that right, what should they have done? Decrease the width of the walkway, or I'm not sure how the solution should have worked out there.
Yeah, so if you look at where the survey stakes are and where they are in the plan, they are following the plan, but the problem is the amount of digging that they had to do to go all the way to the 10-foot town right away, dug into those ledges, and just there's a lot of tree roots that are exposed. I actually still have concerns about some other trees that I keep following up with the contractors on because I want to make sure a lot of those trees are protected. But yeah, by walking the site with the arborist, he definitely was not optimistic that those hemlocks will survive. He said it'll give them a little more sunlight, but
yeah, should we have known that problem was going to occur when we approved it? Because I mean, you can look at 10 feet and say, hey, that's right at the trunk of the tree.
Yeah, I think on a site visit walk might have helped because obviously we're looking at it on the plan, and that obviously looks different than looking at it.
We did know it was going to happen. That's why we put an order of conditions.
True.
Exactly.
We gave them 7 conditions. Yeah.
So with the order of conditions, is the town financially responsible for replacing those trees?
Yes. It's legally feasible in terms of
when I watch the select board meetings and hearings, and I hear everyone talk about how this is no offense to anybody here, how the Sawyer Street sidewalk is the greatest thing since sliced bread. We can talk about what the financial impacts to the town will be as a result of this fantastic sidewalk that every person in the town allegedly wanted. Okay.
Question for
Fair
you.
enough.
It's not anywhere near the wetlands, though.
No.
Are we actually involved in this?
Yes.
Technically, yes, with our stormwater regulations where we want trees of, so trees of 12-inch caliper or greater need to be on the plan. Those hemlocks were not 12-inch caliper, but the Tetra Tech did do a good tree survey by marking, a lot of the trees on the plan. But yes, to a certain point, like stormwater, if those were like, at least we covered ourselves with the order conditions by issuing all those conditions about replacing the trees. But yes, that's on the upland side, so it's outside of our buffer. But yeah, that's and I did have one more, 10 Ocean Ledge, in case you guys are wondering. That one, I had a pre-construction visit, and so that project is starting up soon. That's just a stormwater permit for a new proposed dwelling. And from what I've been told, I might get calls from neighbors, so I will probably be visiting that site more frequently than anticipated, but that one's going to start.
You're definitely going to be getting calls. And while you're there, feel free to swing around and do the loop of Howe Road while you're at it.
Okay. Yep. I was going to say that every time I go by Howe or Diab, it's like I just go through the whole thing.
Yep.
So yeah, adding it to the loop, and that's it.
You're being very active. Well done.
I'm trying, but yeah, thank you guys for continuing to notify me if you see anything. So I appreciate all of that from you guys, since, of course I can't be everywhere 24/7. So
Tom and I can hear it.
You've been out in the field. You've been out in the field in the last few months, more than the prior agent had been in 4 years, I think. So you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I try.
I'd mentioned that I took a look at the building permit for 15 Howe and compared it to the building footprint that we had approved. I wasn't on the board at that time, but that was approved. And actually, the footprint is for 15 Howe is 400 square feet less than what we.
Is this Diab? Sorry.
Yeah, 15 Diab.
Yeah, there were, and Chris and Jake know about this too. There were a handful of administrative changes that have been going through for 3, 9, and 15. So I have a record of all of them at this point. They're very active sites and they definitely keep tinkering with certain things. So one of the main changes I'll just note for 3 Diab, for example, is the original design for the utilities was supposed to go down Howe Road, cut right into the middle of that large ledge outcrop, which one of the changes that we administratively approved was to push those utilities further down and loop around. It involved taking out a couple more trees, but a lot of neighbors were happy to hear that because they did not want that ledge. You know, it would be a huge crevice like right in between. So it would have looked awful and involved a lot of disturbance because there was already a lot of blasting at that site. So they would have had to cut through that whole ledge outcrop. So there's definitely been some minor changes to 3, 9, and 15. 15, not as much, but the new owner, Andrew Gallagher, who owns 9 and 15 Diab, he sometimes wants to tinker with little things here and there, but if anything ever changes the design for stormwater, we'll be bringing it back to you guys. But for now, most of the changes have just kind of been a little bit minor reductions in impervious, moving things around to lessen disturbance in certain areas, but keeping a close eye on those.
A lot of damaged trees from equipment running into them over there. We hear some chainsaws running from time to time. Wonder what they're cutting.
Yeah, and I made that clear that obviously any trees of 12-inch caliber or greater that need to be cut down that aren't already marked to be cut down need to be on the plan. So let me know if you think you see any additional tree work over there, because they should be done with the trees on 9 and 15 and 3, as far as I know, because they're obviously working on the blasting and adding the foundation. So the tree work should be done, but if you see anything else.
They were cutting yesterday.
Lovely. Okay. I'll give them a call.
How's the mitigation at 595 Jerusalem coming?
I actually have not heard from them in a while, so I will check in on that one.
I think the locust might be back. Something I know that grows that fast.
Operation, Chris?
What?
The condo operation.
Yeah.
Oh. 589.
Oh, 589, sorry.
589.
Oh, I feel a headache coming on.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, they wanted to. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jay.
No, telling Eric he got us into this headache.
I know. It's been years.
And if anyone's interested, what's the one with the grass tennis court, 280?
205 Atlantic.
205, that's for sale if anyone wants it.
Really? Which one?
205.
Really?
Is that Mr. Flynn? I'm gonna build my dream home here for my family, but that now I want to sell.
I actually got to call him probably tomorrow about the planting plan because we have some edits back and forth that we haven't agreed upon yet. So they gave us a plan by the deadline that we set, but we haven't approved it yet because we want to see more trees. So I can ask him about that.
Andrew Flynn is trying to sell that parcel.
Yeah.
Wonder if it has anything to do with the recent activity in the stock market or crypto.
Tom, if you want to live in a bunker, feel free to, put go sign a purchase and sale if you don't mind to live in the first and second floor underground.
Yeah. Fishing bunker.
No, I just put up a simple fishing cabin there. It's one of my favorite spots. It's
very expensive fishing cabin.
Hey, there's room for it.
It'd be a great spot for that.
I think I have a fishing cabin at the end of June or July that's going to be vacant in Yellowstone.
Oh.
Don't think I'm getting in there.
No, I don't think so.
No, from the south you can.
No, the place I'm going is in the north, unfortunately. They're Gardner.
It's still there?
As they call it. Nasty stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, even if you could get there, the fishing, probably a lot of fish have just been swept on downstream to the Missouri by now, you know?
Absolutely. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
What, we're gonna quit early? We're quitting 3
Yes.
hours early. What are you
Good.
talking about?
Yeah.
No more
Thank you.
hearings.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Chris. Great meeting. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Good job.
Good night.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Go Celtics.